State Senator, Williamsburg, Newport News, Democrat, 1st District, just announcing his re-election campaign a few weeks back. John Miller, Senator Miller, also a frequent guest host of the John Fredericks Show. Senator Miller, great to have you.
It's good to be with you, John, and let me just say at the beginning that I wish your Astros good luck, but 2015 will be the year of the Chicago Cubs.
Oh, come on, John. You know what? I forgot you were a Cubs fan. You guys are worse than we are.
Generally, yeah, but I think this year, we're turning things around.
You got that hotshot general manager, right, from the Red Sox, Theo Epstein, and you got a couple of good young players. But now, of course, now the Astros are in the American League, so we don't play the Cubs the way we did in the past, which was like, I think, 12 or so games a season. Now we only play them during interleague play. But when they do play each other, I'm going to call you up. We'll have to have a side wager.
That'll be good. I look forward to that.
All right. So I went maybe World Series 2015 Cubs Astros. How would that be? That'd be fun, wouldn't it?
I'm blocking out a week in October for it.
All right. I'll be right there with you.
All right, sir.
A Republican has filed, we understand, lawyer from Williamsburg, Mark Matney. Don't know anything at all about him, so I can't comment on it. But, John, why do you want a third term?
Well, John, I think that there's a lot of still unfinished business. As you know, I have been a leader in the General Assembly and in trying to reduce the number of SOLs, and we started that process a couple of years ago. We had 34 of them. We're down to 29. I believe we need to go down to 17, just the 17 that are required by the federal government. There's too much testing, too much teaching to the test, too much rote memorization, and not enough critical thinking skills being imparted to our students. So we need to continue to make improvements to the way we're teaching our children. I want to protect our children. I had legislation a year ago about not selling e-cigarettes to minors. And there are a number of good government bills that I think are essential for us to move forward on. One is creating an independent redistricting commission so the folks that have an interest in the outcome are not drawing the lines. Mm-hmm. We also need to make sure that if you're 65 years old and you want an absentee ballot, you don't need an excuse. You've earned that right. If you don't want to stand in a long line, you'll have to be able to go up to the registrar and say, I'm 65, give me an absentee ballot, and be done with it. We have to be expanding people's ability to vote and not restricting it. And finally, a bill that I was pushing this past session is these DRE machines that have no paper trail, that the General Assembly has said you can't buy any new ones. We ought to eliminate their use. They are so old that some of those machines run on Microsoft XP. Microsoft hadn't provided support for an XP system in years, but yet that's what we're voting on. So there's still a lot of good work to be done.
Now, what about, I know you've been a champion of expanding the ability for people to vote by absentee ballot, and I agree with that. A lot of people just can't get out to the polls for whatever reason, and you shouldn't have to have that many reasons to be able to vote absentee. But Republicans said that's fine, but you got to be able to prove you are who you are, so you have to show an ID. Terry McAuliffe vetoed that. Why?
Well, he vetoed the ID requirement on an absentee ballot. If you're doing that by mail, if that process is being done by mail, what does the registrar have to compare it to? You get a photo ID in the mail, and there's no real person in front of you. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think he vetoed it.
Let's get to the overall budget that was passed. It was very laudatory of the Maxter, Senator Miller, for signing that without amendments. Do you think he did the right thing?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. He was very involved in that process from the very beginning, and my understanding is that he met frequently with budget negotiators and said, here's what I need out of the budget. Tell me what you need, and throughout the process that went forward. And so at the end of the day, there was a consensus agreement between the governor and the budget committee on the budget moving forward, and that, I think, is why you saw no amendments to the budget.
So what about, let's get to this ABC situation. The ABC officers, another blatant black mark on them, that's like a sty on their eye. This young fella in Charlottesville the other day on the ground full of blood. I know we're trying to wait for the video. But this, John, on top of the incident we had with Miss Daly 12 months ago where ABC officers surrounded her vehicle, terrorized her, pulled a firearm on her, and she had bottled water. When are you guys going to rein these people in?
I think next year.
How?
The state police is doing an investigation, and I think we ought to wait for that to see what those results are. It troubles me a great deal that these incidents have occurred. I think the ABC police ought to be limited to ensuring that restaurants are selling the proper amount of liquor and things that deal with the dispensing of liquor, and not roaming the streets picking up folks. That's the purview of local law enforcement, and I don't think they ought to have that ability, and I expect that will be one of the issues that will be addressed in the next session.
Well, what they've done now, Senator Miller, is they've gone from doing what you just said to targeting underage drinking, which really isn't their mission, and it isn't what they're assigned to do. It's almost like they're trying to justify their existence. And look, at the end of the day, if you're under 21, you're not supposed to be intoxicated. Everybody understands that. But, I mean, in college, it's going to happen. And I just don't think getting kids beat up over it by ABC officers is where we ought to be headed as a society.
And I agree with that. And I think those policies will be reviewed at the next session, and I think limitations will be placed on them, and that underage drinking will revert back to the purview of the local police.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way it is. Perhaps the ABC ought to be put under the state police. In fact, the ABC as a whole, why do we even have it? Why not just turn it over to private enterprise? Like, what? I think we're one of 3 states now with still that has liquor sales under the state sanction. I mean, isn't that kind of like 1920 stuff? Why don't we just get rid of it?
Well, Governor McDonald tried to do that, and he was not successful. One of the government doesn't do a whole lot well, but it does ABC very well, and it is a great source of revenue for the state. And I think that the system has been working. The system of selling has been working well for many, many years, and I see no need at this point to change it.
Well, it's kind of an antiquated system, but I'm going to get off that. Senator, I'm going to go to payday lending, which has been in debate in Virginia for some time, especially in Southeast Virginia. A lot of people think that payday lenders prey on vulnerable members of the military. I'm going to play a clip the other day by President Obama.
The good news is that today the House of Representatives passed a bill. No. You think I'm joking? I'm not. The bad news is the Republicans in Congress unveiled their budget. And it represents the opposite of middle-class economics. Because it would hand out new tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, let taxes go up for students and working families, because it would eliminate their tax credits on a variety of things. It would cut investments in education to the lowest level since the year 2000. It would double the number of Americans without health insurance. One of the main ways to make sure paychecks go farther is to make sure working families don't get ripped off. And so I'm very proud of the bipartisan effort here in Alabama to try to change this. But I want everybody to know they're not going to have to fight alone, because at the federal level, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, the CFPB, announced today that it's going to take important steps towards protecting consumers from getting stuck into these cycles of debt.
Senator Miller, we have had the payday lending debate in Virginia, especially Southeast Virginia, for some time. Do you think the rules that we have in place now are stringent enough, or do you think they should go beyond that?
I have introduced, John, legislation in the General Assembly every year I have been in there to cap payday lending at 36%. The federal government has said, you talked about military folks earlier, the federal government has passed a law that says military people cannot pay more than 36% for one of these types of loans. So in Virginia, if somebody from the military walks into a payday loan place, they get a 36% rate.
Right.
If I walk in, I get a 288% rate. It isn't fair. It isn't right. It isn't right morally. It does keep people in a cycle of debt. I was pleased to see that the Attorney General announced the other day that he's going to look into payday loans and see what he can do and what changes can be made. And I will put in another payday loan capping bill again next session because we've got to end this cycle of debt that these people get caught up in.
Why is it always stalled?
Well, I will tell you when I present my bills, one of the reasons is that if we eliminated payday loans, where would people go? And I know where they would go. They would go to the Langley Federal Credit Unions and other credit unions that have programs for payday loan people. But there is a fear that they would go from people who vote against my legislation, that they would go to the Internet, which is the Wild West of payday loans,
right,
and pay even more. I think we've just got to take a stand and say, it's not right, it's not fair, and we're going to end payday loans in Virginia.
Well, here's the bottom line: if you're able to make a profit at 36% to the military, why wouldn't be able to make loans and make a profit at 36% to everybody else? I mean, that's really the bottom line. I think this argument that people are going to go to the Internet or they're going to go to loan sharking is a straw man. And it's really a false choice. I think the argument is you'd have to ask yourself how many of these payday lending places would shut down if they were limited to 36%. I bet not a lot of them. And so it really is price gouging, because if you saw a bunch of them shut down over 36% for military, and in Tidewater, as you know, Senator Miller, almost 50 to 70% of any of these payday lending outlets in Southeast Virginia service the military. So they're functioning at 36%, right?
Absolutely. And we have almost as many payday loan outlets in Hampton Roads as there are McDonald's. Now think about that.
If, assuming you get reelected and you get back to the General Assembly in 2016, tell me what is going to be your number one objective.
My number one objective is reducing the number of SOLs in Virginia. As we mentioned earlier, it is just imperative that we have a generation of children now who can tell us the date we went to the moon, but not why. And we've got to impart critical thinking skills. I'm on the SOL Innovation Committee, and that's looking at ways we can improve the SOLs and improve teaching generally. And last week we had a panel of business people speak to us about the skills that they need in their workers. And there were 4 of them, and to a person, they all said, we want employees with good soft skills, get there on time, work hard, always show up. We can teach them the skills they need to know about the job, but they've got to have critical thinking skills. And so that if you're going to make it in the employment world in 2015 and beyond, we've got to impart those skills to our children. Okay,
fair enough. Final question. If you get reelected, go back in 2016, in your Democratic caucus, are you going to vote for Dick Sazar to continue as Senate leader?
I assume he's running. I don't know who else is running. Dick has been a good leader so far, and so we'll just see how that plays out.
All right. We want to thank John Miller for being with us. Senator Miller, if people want more info on your campaign, where do they go?
Go to my website, senatorjohnmiller.com.
All right, senatorjohnmiller.com. Senator, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Good luck in the campaign.